Okay.
All right. Perfect. Okay. Release 112. Release manager. This is something we should be discussing. I think we already have the candidates, right? With Anna and Daniel.
Yeah, they're good here.
Docs for offline review feature phrase. Jacob, this is your documentation.
Yeah, there's a PR. Sven wanted that, so any reviews on that would be good.
Okay. I guess you still want more people. There's only 2 people from POC commented out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to mention anything else for this PR? Give us an overview, or just rather us review offline?
Just review it offline. I don't think anything is out of line or necessary to call out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jacob. Yanni, I think you have on the agenda, so we should probably get to your item. I don't see anything for offline review. So Yanni, why don't you take away for the graduation
Okay.
for the security CRD?
Yeah, so I just hope like a TOC could take a look at the doc and give comments and feedback and approve if you think that is good. And there are 2 main takeaways from the work for graduating security CRD from V1 Beta 1 to V1. The first takeaway is that we plan not to make major changes in the API because there were comments for asking if we should align with the new gateway networking API. But we decided that we want to graduate first and make those alignments later. The second main takeaway is that majority of the work mentioned in this talk is actually about testing, stability, documentation, and we do not introduce new features in the graduation work. Yeah, those are the 2 main takeaways. There are more details in the talk about like each of those things we plan to do to graduate it to V1. So please take a look and let us know what you think.
What else do we security CRD besides pure authentication and authorization?
There is a echo. I'm not sure who is asking the question. Can you hear it clearly?
Oh, I guess we don't have authentication.
Lynn, is it you asking question?
Yes. I just think that I was thinking obviously there is security CRD. I think it's the request authentication, pure authentication, and authorization. Is that right?
So, Lynn, your voice is so distorted that we can't hear it very well.
That is true, but I can repeat it. She asked, what are the other types? Is it pure authentication, request authentication? And I forget what the other one was.
You mean the type of the CRD?
Yeah,
Yes, it's request authn and the authorization policy.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Oh,
No.
So after 1 year of testing and feedback from users and everything else, we haven't found anything in the beta APIs that we want to change. We just want to promote them as they are. Everything is used broadly. Everything is the same level.
No, we actually have made some changes in the beta API, like the authorization policy. We added a few new fields feedback.
I'm not worried about adding fields. I'm more worried about from the original API. Is everything broadly used? Is everything worthy the promotion? I mean, additions we can make at any time is not a problem. My concern is it seems a bit strange that, I mean, lucky, maybe we did an excellent job of designing it initially, but, for all APIs, we typically find some, parts that are not commonly used, some parts that don't work very well. I'm surprised that when an API moves from beta to V1 without any significant change.
Do you have a view about like what they think you are thinking? Because I have seen like a request for significant changes.
I mean, custom, normally it would be expected that there are very few changes between beta and stable, right? I mean, that's working as intended.
Yeah, maybe.
No, definitely. Right. I mean, we expect changes between alpha and beta. We don't expect a lot of changes between beta and stable.
Don't forget that many of the APIs were kind of jumped to beta directly. I mean, it's when we change to workload. I mean, the workload selector is the one that I was worried about the most, but apparently we are okay to move it. But okay. If the usage of all fields, I mean, it's my concern is if we move to HBone and to kind of Kubernetes APIs and other things, we may have too broad API surface. That's, I mean, permissive mode, is it something that we want to promote to have V1 as supported, or is we can just select a subset of the field? Like we did proxy config, we didn't move everything, we just went over the fields and selected the ones that we felt most confident that, those will be stable and can be implemented by others and so forth. But it's okay.
So, Yangman, you didn't mention peer authentication, correct? Right? You just said request authentication and authorization policy.
Sorry, I think peer authentication is also included here. So it refers to all the three main security CRD: peer auth-n, request auth-n, and auth-c.
So I certainly request auth-n and auth-z. Those definitely make sense to me. I think peer auth-n hasn't had as much iteration as the other two have had. Right, both auth-z is an entirely new revision of the previous form of authorization policy. Request authentication, we put a lot more time and effort into. I think Costin has a point that there is some inherent conflict between auto MTLS and peer auth-n that we do need to be careful with.
I know for sure that, for example, proxyless gRPC can support and will probably support the auth-z, so I have no problem with auth-z. It's it's pretty standard. JWTs are fine. I mean, pretty much everyone supports, but the permissive mode is the one that gives me concern. I know HBone will not use it probably. Proxyless will not support it, so it's dangerous, I think.
But we will. So the dangerous thing is, you think if we promote it to V1, we don't want to support permissive mode in V1. Is that what you mean, Costin?
Yes, I mean permissive will probably go away soon and will not be supported broadly, and it's dangerous for users to believe that permissive mode is a V1 stable API when a large part of Istio will not even be able to technically support it and very likely will go away. And it's also a transition mode anyway. It's not meant to be something that is permanently used. Sorry, John.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is permissive mode is almost not even an API because it's the default behavior, and it would be like I just don't see how we could ever change that from the default.
So
That is the API. Yeah, that's the problem we have here. We made the wrong thing a default, and it's now difficult to not break users.
When we switch to Hbone, you know, there will be a migration path, there will be some settings. I mean, but it's not necessarily an API. It's an install option. It's not.
I'm actually a bit confused why we seem to think this is the wrong API. I don't understand how Istio would really work without permissive mode in the real world. No one has clusters that literally everything is Istio enabled, except for very, very few users. Almost everyone I talk to has kind of homogeneous workloads.
It
Or
depends,
not
John,
homogeneous, other one.
how you're introducing Istio to your environment and how you are migrating workloads, right?
I mean, I totally agree.
Before-
People should use strict, but to get
Yeah.
rid of permissive mode seems like a very extreme option.
I agree with that now.
I'm not saying we need to get rid of it for you know, people migrating to Istio. I'm just saying that the API. I mean, first of all, I don't know if it can be technically supported. I mean, even if we want it, it is not possible to support it in some environments. With our implementation, with the port being either, I mean, auto-detecting TLS and all the other stuff. When you wish to have Hbone, it's out. I don't know.
But
I don't
this
think it's
is all.
out custom, right? I mean, we will have situations in Hbone where we will allow traffic on the original ports.
Yeah, but it will not be auto-detect, it will not be permissive. And permissive is basically we sniff, we do the crazy stuff. ALPN negotiation, all the other stuff. It will be a different implementation, I mean, different mode.
I'm not sure that part of the API actually changes. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with John. It seems like the transition, it's important to be able to have this permissive mode, but also I worry a little bit about, you know, having some particular data path implementation then dictating what APIs we want to support. I understand that it can, if it's just hard to implement, that might be an issue sometimes, but this seems like a fairly new addition to the data path, and sort of letting that drive and modifying APIs seems a little, to me, it seems like it'd be better to add that support to the data path implementation as opposed to modifying our APIs.
I would also mention that we don't have a technical solution to change fields between V1 beta 1 and V1. So to say something like we will just not add this one field or something to the V1 API really means that we're going to block this for, you know, a substantial period of time until we figure out that solution.
That's not entirely true. We can hide fields from the docs. That's all we need to do now. We have annotations of fields now. We have.
You can hide them, but they can still be used.
I'm
No, that's
still,
fine. Used. Yeah.
I mean, I'm still not sure like what's the benefit of just hiding it in the V1. I mean, like what do we want to achieve by like hiding this like a permissive mode if we like fully support it?
We are not fully supporting. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Proxyless gRPC doesn't have it because it's a very.
But that is something new, right? That comes after we have the permissive mode, like, and like Luis.
So one question I have, Yang Min, is, do we know how often the API is used? Is it one per install, typically?
We probably, like, you mean like someone like explicitly specify permissive instead of using it by default?
No, I mean, how many, on average, how many peer authentication resources does a user create per install?
Oh, I think we have those numbers, but I don't have it right now. I can get it and add it to the doc for reference.
At least if it's not. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if the answer is close to one per install, it's not an API. Right, it's a configuration setting.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be right promoting something that's used that rarely to a stable. Right, we might just be better off deprecating it and moving it into, you know, proxy config / mesh config.
Yeah, let me look into the number and put it in the doc for this usage.
Yeah, I mean, the other two, like, I think everybody agrees that they have broad and diverse usage, but I think that one I'm a little less sure about.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you guys hear?
Elaine?
Okay, one thing I do want to say is, like when we recommend user to adopt Istio for pure authentication policy, we do recommend them to change strict per service first, and then per namespace, and then look at globally. So there are transition phases that we wouldn't recommend people to enable strict mutual TLS for the entire mesh without this gradual phase.
But we can do that gradual phase with proxy config under. I mean, we can have this field in other places, not in the P1 APIs. That's my point.
Yeah, I just want to make sure when we have this, if we think proxy config is a better home, we need to make sure it also allow user to do granular, strict, tighten up their mutual TLS.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Okay, so I guess that should be some like assessment made in the document. I mean, it's a beta API, right? We can't get rid of it that quickly anyway. But if we could, then that would actually be beneficial.
I mean, there's no proposal out there on proxy config to replace it at the moment, right? Because ideally, we would like to see the proposal implemented before we even, at least, you know, have the design in place before we launch the application, I'd assume.
I don't
Right,
think
but,
go ahead, Lee.
yeah, no, we would, but we would also have to make that decision before we decide to promote to stable, right?
Yeah, agreed on promotion to stable, yeah.
I'm only proposing to keep it as beta, just like networking API. So gateway virtual service will probably stay at beta for a very, very long time. So can this API can stay there.
But I thought networking APIs may have been at beta for a long time, but I thought that was one of the things we wanted to avoid was staying in perpetual beta. Not to say that this shouldn't, not to necessarily say that we should rush to move to promote this, but on the other hand, I don't know if the past ways that we've treated APIs is the right way to think about going forward either.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree we should promote this if we don't have a concrete plan to reconcile it with proxy config.
Yeah.
But that should at least be assessed. The other two we should definitely promote.
Yeah.
That's just a small question. So regarding the like a proxy config thing, kind of like a replacement, is there documentation or any like a POC I should contact with to like learn more details about this? Because I feel it's a bit new to me.
I don't even know if proxy config is the right. I'm just saying that it's good to have additional discussion, thinking about this. And 2 out of 3 is not bad. We are pretty clear about the other 2. This one, if we are not convinced, maybe it's good to delay release or 2. There is no. I mean, nobody will die if we keep this one for another 1 or 2 releases.
Yeah, I mean, Yang, and one other way to do it, right, would have been to, in authorization policy, say, whether MTLS was required or not in a deny policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is another way of rationalizing the API.
I see. Yeah, we can. I mean, you mean we can always use policy to like kind of achieve the strict mode so that we still have to do that, right? Okay.
Right. If traffic is not MTLS, then deny it.
Yeah, that's actually like in one of the like recommendation configuration we have in on istio.io. The user, they can apply additional auth to achieve this in addition to the pure auth. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so I mean, we should do an assessment to see if that is also a better, is an adequate way of expressing this requirement, so we can have one fewer API, which is usually a good thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. I tried to take some notes. So essentially for pure authentication, we're going to keep it as a beta until we have a plan, whether we are keeping it or move it to proxy config. Request authentication and authorization, there's no objection from the team here.
Lynn, I think the current status is proxy config is out of the selection. We don't plan to move it to proxy config. Louis' proposal is actually perfect. I mean, it's just we'll imply it from the authorization. If you have authorization policy implies you have strict, because plain text you cannot verify the principal. If you don't have authorization policies, then it can be permissive.
Well, yeah,
or something like that.
Something like that. I don't think that's quite right.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I added that portion too. So, but that's when we have a plan, then we can discuss whether this is beta or going away with beta or anything. Anything else we should be discussing for this topic? Okay, great. If not, do we have Mitch on the line to talk about extended support?
Yes, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mitch.
All right, so I'm on mobile because there's a storm coming through the area right now and internet is not reliable. I apologize if I break off, but I just wanted to give a brief follow-up on our decision to extend the support of the 1.11 release. You may recall that we were aiming at a behavior change on the part of our users. We'd like to see more frequent upgrades, or rather not more frequent upgrades, but more frequently, we'd like to see our users on an up-to-date version or a supported version of Istio. And so we extended the support of 1.11 by 6 weeks. That support ended on October 5th. And I took a snapshot of GKE data around upgrades on October 7th to sort of capture how we did. And what we found in terms of upgrades was twofold. One, we found that the skip version upgrades, 1.8 to 1.10, 1.9 to 1.11, has actually been a common user practice since far before we supported it. So about 10 to 15% of users in any given release that upgraded would do so across 2 or more major versions. That was interesting to see even before we supported it. In 1.9 to 1.11, we see 28% of all of our upgrades are coming directly from 1.9. So that is a user behavior change, but also we're seeing that we're supporting the existing behavior of users additionally. 1.9 has now had the fastest turn down of any Istio version yet, and 1.11 has had the fastest adoption of any Istio version yet. So I think overall we have moved the needle. We're seeing more users stay up to date on Istio. We've got a long ways to go in that we still see a good number of users on the 1.9 release now that it is not supported. I think our first 0 day for that is expected early next month, and we will still have a substantial number of users there. So room to improve, but we've definitely moved the needle in terms of upgrade experience.
Well, this is great. I have a quick question. I remember GKE had a rapid channel, right? So are these rapid channel or these are normal GKE?
I don't have any data correlating to GKE channels. Those are like separate data sources, so I can't join them.
I see. Thank you.
So this is in general good, Mitch, and thanks for sharing it. What's the recommended action if you have any for us? Would you like the 6-week window to be extended further? Should we stay on course?
I think staying the course would probably be what I would advocate. I haven't heard any complaints from users that 6 weeks was good but not good enough. It would be interesting if you've heard from users. I would love to see that feedback, but we certainly moved the needle. We could try a 12-week extension at some point and see if that moves the needle further. The risk then, though, is the messaging to users of this release is extended by 12 weeks, whereas no, now we're going back to 6 weeks. We don't want to vacillate and confuse our users.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense.
But I think Neeraj is asking a really interesting question. So if you guys look at this, when we have this announcement out there, we did kind of say, did we get any actual feedback on any of these? Because we did say, based on more data, we're going to decide whether to continue this path or not.
My efforts at collecting feedback have been around empirical data rather than, sort of anecdotal feedback from individual users.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you would like anecdotal feedback, I can direct my efforts towards that in the next release.
No. I think the data you have was great. I was just curious if you get any data through any of these channels that we mentioned in our blog. Sounds like not really. So I think Mitch, we're due for 110, right? For the extended support. Are we going down to the extended support for 110 or not? I assume 110 is going to be out soon.
Yeah, my understanding is that when we decided in August, our intention was to continue with this policy unless we found that it was not useful. I believe, based on the data that I've been able to share today, that it has been useful, and so we should stay the course with the 110 release, extending its support to 6 weeks beyond the release date of 112. And then more or less, unless we see concrete reason to change, I would suggest that become our policy moving forward.
Yeah, because only the extension allows them to do the skip version upgrade, which you are seeing a trend of people adopting.
Right. The extension allows them to do it while still supported. Not leaving the support window at any time. We have seen that users have been doing this for quite some time, meaning that they've been doing it without support either for the skip upgrade itself or for the older version at the time of their upgrade. So in some cases, we're simply taking an existing behavior of our users and making sure we support it well.
Any other comments from anyone?
So one comment I have is that I would like to see similar data from other participants, I guess Solo, to see if it either supports this or does not support it, other than just relying on one data source.
Yeah, because we're not the cloud provider. It's actually super hard to collect these type of data. And the only approach we can do is ask individual users. Like, we couldn't get a massive data of what's running on a given cloud for the Kubernetes. I don't know if these data too.
So one question. Sorry, continue. Finish.
So no, I just realized that Eric is on vacation, so that would be a moot question. Go ahead.
If the user behavior is to do skip version, from 1.9 to 1.11, and basically to have fewer upgrades, basically, wouldn't make kind of reopen the issue of, do we want to have odd even releases? And apparently odd is more popular with Istio because 1.9 and 1.11. But wouldn't make sense for 1.9, 1.11, 1.13, and so forth to have even longer release to give them more time. And so we kind of keep the pattern of having skip release, but with the deterministic, which versions are more I don't know how to say, popular, basically.
I don't think that we have enough data to say yet that users prefer odd releases or even releases. Before 1.9 became our most popular release, 1.8 had been our most popular release. So we see a fair amount of distribution, but I can keep an eye on that as we do the 1.10 to 1.12 cycle to sort of see if there's a sort of tick-tock cadence to upgrades.
I think the number to look at is how many people do each version versus how many people do skip one version. It doesn't matter which version they skip, but if they do skip version because they want to have fewer upgrades and they feel confident that skipping one version is safe, then it will be better for us to not have all versions be skip versions. I mean, to have 1.9 to 1.11, 1.10 to 1.12, but to control a bit the versioning because it's easier for both users and us too.
Sense. I don't have permission to share the raw data with the group, the broader group, but Costin, if you reach to me offline, I can share the raw data with you so that you can see those cadences.
Thanks.
Okay, looks like there's no further question for Mitch. Thank you so much for giving us an update. I think that really validates the plan we laid out early this year on extended support on 1.9 has been working out really well. With that, we're going to move on to Daniel to talk about 1.12 branch cutting. Daniel, take it away.
Hey there, yeah, that's right. Kenan and me have been discussing this, and we've been delaying the branch cutting for 1.12 because of the issues around the Envoy upgrade. There had been, and there still is, an automated PR that hasn't been merged in 3 months. This week there has been, actually end of last week, there has been some progress. Exactly, this is the open PR that supposedly fixes the issues that stem from the Envoy update, but it's not merged yet. In any case, we are now almost 2 weeks behind on the branch cutting. So Kenan and me would like to propose delaying the release by 2 weeks so that we have appropriate testing time once we cut the branch and get the first builds. Because otherwise, we would only have time for a single community testing week and no buffers, basically. So basically, the community testing week would end of the day of code freeze. So if we find problems late in the testing week, we can't fix them. So adding 2 weeks would allow us to do 2 testing weeks, and it would give us some buffer time to fix any issues that might show up during these testing weeks.
So Shiwada, is our November 11, is that, or 9th was our current release date for 1.12?
Yeah, November 9th is the current date.
November 9th, yes.
Yeah. Daniel, we have been discussing this, but one more question along the same lines. I know that Envoy fixes keep on delaying. How much confidence is this that this fix will be available soon? Although it's merged, it was merged last week, so I'm not sure.
We already have the Istio test passing, but we just need to merge it. So I think we're very high confidence.
Okay.
But it's still a good question. John, what's your confidence level on any remaining issues that might pop up that we might not be catching in our tests? I know we have some issues related to changes in Envoy and 120 that might be causing problems.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, I mean, we may find something in community testing. More realistically, if there is something that's not caught by our tests, it's going to be caught by users after we ship it, just historically speaking. I think there was still one change where the Envoy removed a bunch of filters that our users use through Envoy filter that we decided we would add back, but I don't think anyone's picked that up. But that's like 1 or 2 hours of someone making some Bazel changes. So I don't think that's terribly high risk. That's all the issues that I know about, but there certainly could be more that I don't know about.
Right. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just want to mention another thing is we probably have a few PRs like waiting to be merged to the 1.12 branch after the Envoy dependency is resolved. So those things might introduce some like new changes in the 1.12 that is not fully tested because it's been like blocked for a long time because of the Envoy dependency issue.
Right. So these sorts of changes might increase the probability of us hitting anything in the community tests.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the changes you mentioned, are they release blocker?
So the one I know is I have another PR for implementing the job claim-based routing. That's one PR like waiting, like blocked by the Envoy dependency update. That's a feature we are planning to roll out in 1.12. So yeah, but it's kind of like we really need that one in 1.12. So it's not like a release blocker like a bug fix, but it's something we have planned for.
Yeah, makes sense. A new feature, but you depend on this Envoy dependency to be able to do your full validation. So we'll have to call, are these still reasonable to drop these type of changes for 1.12, given 1.12 is already at risk?
So that PR has been like ready for probably at least 1 month. There's only one PR implementing this feature. It touches a very small code base in the networking code. So I would really want to like get this into 1.12 because it has been like asked for many people and we have done all the things to get ready for 1.12. If it's not the like Envoy dependency issue, it would have been like in 1.12 for at least 1 month ago.
I see. Yeah, so what do other TOC members think about the delay? I just look at the calendar. If we do delay 2 weeks, it would be the Tuesday on the Thanksgiving week.
I don't think that's a good week to release.
Maybe delay, but just by 1 week instead of 2.
Yeah.
That's an option, yes. If we delay it by 1 week. So I'm guessing, I'm hoping that this week, actually middle of the week, we will be able to cut the branch and get the first builds out. If we then immediately start a community testing week, then we might be able to even do 2 of them before code freeze, even if we just delay by 1 week. So I understand that the date in 2 weeks might not be ideal. So yeah, maybe 1 week is a good compromise.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that. And then certainly, Daniel, hopefully you don't need to come back. Certainly if we have to have more time, definitely, back again in the TOC meeting?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that.
Yes, let's just delay by a week first, and hopefully that would give you sufficient time. If not, you can always come back to the TOC meeting in a week and let us know in a week or two.
Right, yeah, sounds sensible.
Yeah.
Mandar, I don't have that information. So Mandar just asked in the chat how many issues we usually find in the community testing days. Maybe, John, are you on the call? John Wendell?
So
No, he's not anymore.
my question was also similar to Mandar. Basically, if I understood correctly, many of the things that we have now are automated. So we don't actually have a lot that's manually tested during community days. So if that's the case, I don't even know why we need a week or 2 weeks.
Right. I mean, the community testing day, one of the things it does is make sure that the documentation is aligned with what's built, because the automation doesn't read the text of the documentation. But apart from that, yeah, any real issues, what have we been finding? So yeah, so maybe 1 week is actually enough and not really even a compromise.
But this shouldn't impact the text of the documentation, right? Like this is changing.
Oh, right. Correct. So this particular thing shouldn't involve, but any text that has already changed is not subject to community review until we declare community testing day, and that is one of the clear functions to make sure that. Yeah.
But if I understood correctly, for whatever is automated, we say don't even do anything for the doc page. That means we only actually look at the documentation text for conceptual pages or architectural pages, right? And if that's the case,
not every single doc.
Yeah. We can't hear you, Lynn, or at least I can't.
Okay, so it looks like the TOC already voted for 1 week. So maybe the decision is already there, and we don't need to continue further. I just wanted to kind of see why we would be delaying it, but I don't think that changes the decision. 1 week is great.
I don't think we have enough people who have even agreed to it. I'm okay with leaving it at 1 week, Mandar, but I'm with you actually. I don't understand why we need to delay.
Well, maybe somebody from, so my last time as a release manager, a lot of the testing was manual. So maybe somebody from the most recent releases can speak up. But my understanding was that the more time we have for this release to get into the hands of people and have somebody playing with it, the higher the probability that we're not going out the gate with somebody that will break production deployments. Of course, if we have, I know there's been a lot of effort going into automation of the tests that we've been running in the past. And if we think those tests are enough to justify a release, then yes, we might just say we don't delay the release. That would mean we have 1 week from branch cutting to code freeze.
I'm curious. Go ahead.
Sorry, Costin, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, do we have enough automation for stability? And because that's usually the kind of bug we find when we let it run for a week and start using it in practice, we find all kind of memory leaks and other kind of weird situations which we cannot capture with the current testing framework. Did anything change in this area? We do have stability that is automated now.
So one thing to add here, the community testing has changed. And based on the recent feedback last 2 quarters back or 2 releases back from the TOC, when we discussed is most visited pages are the ones which are prioritized. So 2 quarters back, our P0s, which were identified before, has all been automated. And then we had a course correction, and we decided that the pages which are visited mostly are the ones we want to mark P0. And if they are not automated, we should automate them. At this point in the community testing, we just make sure that if they are not automated, we automate them or manually test them. And other than that, we don't do any feature or functional testing. So based on that, other than 3, I think everything is automated. So we may not need 1 extra week, but I would like to keep that as a buffer, given we are only 2 weeks away from the release. And 1 week normally we need for the code freeze, running the long running tests. And it's always good to have that buffer. So I think we should still be okay with the 9th November, but it's good to have that 1 week which TOC has granted. So Neeraj and Mandar, that 1 week, I think it's mostly for the extra buffer, but we may not need it. It also depends on when this Envoy fix is also getting merged and when we are doing the code freeze. But I'm not expecting a lot of changes in the community testing, just because from the recent releases, I haven't seen much bugs found during those. Most of the time they're automated when we find them during the releases anyways. So Costin, a question to you. When you talk about stability, what do you have in mind? Is this something you relate with the community, or is this something you relate with the longevity tests and you see after 24 hours to 48 hours, you see those stable, long, stable tests? Like, how do you connect them
Both.
with it?
So typically what they expect when we start community testing, people from different companies, pick the release, and they also install it in some canary cluster where they have their own application. And if we have TCP first broken or have any kind of the weird feature or interaction with a particular crazy application that we have no clue, they will detect it in that interval. Second is, yes, long running. I mean, you let it running for a week, you install it, you let it running for a week, and who knows what will happen on memory leaks or other things. But the first one is the more important, because that community testing is basically the interval where people may try other things, not only our scenarios, which are already tested. I completely agree that we don't need to worry too much about the documented install upgrade. It's just how it interacts with other apps.
So then in that sense, Costin, we don't run those kind of community tests anymore because we had a very poor attendance. That has been stopped for a very long time. This community testing is very much about the docs testing, and that's what we do. And most of those are already automated, so we really generally don't do this.
I know we don't do it, but my expectation is that when we announce community testing, users will do it on their own, because if vendors, it's not only what we do in that old community testing where people sit around and install it, but it's also, it's a signal for vendors and users to try the new version before it's released.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to provide that extra buffer. Like vendors, I know sometimes like to try them, right? Just to make sure their Istio offering is going to be compatible with the upcoming new release. So having the release candidates out there and having that time enables vendor to try them. So if there's no objection, I'd like to propose this approve for the delay, but give Daniel and the release team 1 week delay, right? 1 week beyond November 9th, which was our prior release date.
And maybe we should make it more clear that our expectation is that vendors will actually do these actions that I hope they are doing, because it's in their interest, and kind of translate the old community testings that we used to do into, hey, the new release is coming, you have 1 week or 2 weeks to actually, do this and that and verify your application is not going to break with a new release, basically.
Yeah, I think it's good to reach out to the vendor, actually, especially people who are building solution on top of Istio. Okay, we're out of the time too. Shweta, we'll have to line up your topic for next week. I do know Savan and the TOC team do have a roadmap, so we can perhaps review it next week too. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.